I think about the percentage on the math, and I want to give a giant shout out actually right now to everybody that does podcast Utility Room. I mean, I'm not sure if they're streaming and podcasting or if they're only podcasting. I have no idea, but super appreciative of it when we got that ranking to discover that we're in the top 200. Yeah, like you, when I say
Awesome.
like
For
you,
some
not,
reason,
yeah, go ahead.
all of a sudden we got a poor network connection. Are you getting that on your end?
No, you look great to me. I've got the green on the CPUs,
Okay.
16%, 30 frames per second. I mean, I keep it low and tight just for these types of situations. Just in case, you know.
That's weird. You just went total Kraftwerk voice on me there for a second, and now you're back. Now you're good. So we're
Um,
good.
okay. If it
Oh, you
if
gotta
it
love
cuts out,
darn computers.
I've turned off all the Wi-Fi from all my devices and stuff as well, so that when it does happen, again, the show that on my end, I mean, I'm the computer's happening essentially is what's happening, and then nothing else. You know,
Yeah, beauty.
welcome.
Awesome, buddy.
Yeah, like
Great to
you,
see
and
you.
I say
Thank you.
it's great to see you too. Like you, when I say like you, obviously you too, but like you, if you're watching like you, I'm very interested in the history of the dance floor in Toronto, especially if it's about rave and electronic music. Maybe even more recently decorated as EDM. And if you're in Ontario and you've left your home to get wild on a floor at a venue downtown, or if you've partied at Nitrous or Atlantis, if you were a listener of FM radio and recorded sessions to keep what was new and forward thinking, then a big reason of that is because of this DJ with us tonight. Nearly 14 feet deep, the most underground room in house, situated near the laundry, standing between the hot water tank and the air exchange system. You are with us live in the utility room with our guest tonight, DJ Iain.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey,
Thank you for having me.
I
It's
really
nice to
appreciate it.
chat.
It was a long time coming. Our joining, our date.
It's funny how, with all of this, crazy vid stuff, life still gets in the way.
Is this a
And then there's
busy?
those
Is it
big
a busy
gaps,
time for
right?
you?
Yeah, well, yeah. The current gig has real ebbs and flows, and this tends to be strangely kind of the last month or so tends to be a really busy time. So we just couldn't do things. All the getting ramped up for summer course delivery, and I do instructional design with U of T. And so getting all of our summer courses launched and stuff is always pretty maniacal.
It was actually one of the questions that I've got queued up for tonight was how did you become an educator?
Well, it's funny. It's kind of it's one of those things of where everything kind of circles back. So I went to university to become a teacher. I really wanted to do the whole welcome back Cotter thing, be a high school teacher, and then teach English and history. And instead of reading my Chaucer and Shakespeare, I started to listen more to my Pink Floyd and Genesis albums. And so and I got the end of my degree and went, wow, I really don't feel like doing this, but boy, I kind of like music. So I went off and did did go lose yourself trip in Europe, for 6 months, and came back and then went off and did a audio production degree
What
with
happened with the lose yourself part in Europe? Was the music influential on the lose yourself part, or
It's funny. One
did
of
you
the
find what you did you find something that now lost?
well, I lost my fiance. I think that was sort of the beginning of that, end of that, but probably
You know,
just as well for both of us. She would probably agree it was a good thing. So,
right.
but actually, it was funny. Actually, one of the longest standing memories is a musical memory. It's being in Greece in Eos and under. Dancing, and I was, one of the club nights. EOS is, big music center, and just being there, having no roof over my head, but lights. They flew lights over top on wires, and I just had this sort of this moment of wow, this is amazing, and then the foam started coming. I had no idea it was a foam party. and we're in this huge thing, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, what's going on? And so it was just like, my God, so anyway, we ended up bringing that idea back to Toronto eventually. But yeah, that was one of those things. I mean, as I say, 6 months in Europe, lots of things happened, but that's one that really, really stood out. And hearing different international music too that we just never hear here. So
This is what I was wondering, is that before you were off on the lose and finding, the lost and found adventure that you went and had, um, where were you at? Where were you at musically? Like, were you are did you feel that you had like a bite that had already happened before you left, or was that you were kind of in a vibe and that you'd left and came back and that felt cemented?
music's always been an integral part of my life. I mean, I just, I fell asleep. I had this old 1940s radio, and I would fall asleep listening to the local station in St. Catharines, because the guy would come on at like 11 o'clock at night, and he would play like, an entire side of an album. And it was just so cool. It was so outside of the norm. And I would wake up the next morning, and the radio, because it was I remember the tuner was, had the way in which it worked, it actually had a physical connection with a little cable, and the thing was so old it stretched, and so over the night it would actually change the station. So I'd wake up in the morning to some, like morning show. It's like, oh my God, this is just horrible. Having gone to sleep, listening to like in a Gata Vita or something, really ripping it. And they're like, am I in another dimension? Anyway, so that's, I used to do homework to music. I came home, my mom was playing, it was either Bach or Pink Floyd, one of the two. You never knew what you were coming home to. And so it's always been a part. But, getting into sort of alternative music per se was something that happened later, sort of in the 80s. There was a certain club I went to, and that was just like, oh my God, this is life changing. So
And this is how you would say you went to Europe with this type of, you were already in that direction. Did you find that the dance floor in Europe, what the sounds that were being played, were they forward, considering like where you were at coming from Toronto? Were you just in a form of discovery? Was this, or was there a similar thing that was happening?
well, the interesting thing for anyone who's traveled, is that you all of a sudden you get this interesting perspective on home. Because when you're here, we see everything filtered. So being over there, sort of looking back and seeing how people thought of North America and Canada, well, not many people were really thinking about Canada, but North America per se, um, was an interesting sort of, paradigm shift. Realizing, okay, we all have our experiences, and they're all equally valid in many respects because of, they're contextualized by where we live. Um,
Yes.
and musically, it was, um, because of the trip. It was interesting. We bought a car, and the first thing I did was put a cassette deck into it and grabbed as much music as I could at the time. And we ended up, being very fortunate. We stayed at a, guy who was a label rep for Island Records, and so he was working with Grace Jones, and he got me set up with all kinds of cool stuff that I still listen to occasionally from, even now. And it was just like, wow, this is so great. I really want to bring this back to Toronto, and use it and play it. By that point I had started DJing a bit, and then I tried to play it, and of course realized, wow, language is a barrier. So that's not going to work. Can't play anything French. uh, but the thing about, having the sort of the cassettes in that amazing collection was we didn't really listen to music, from media during the time we traveled. So we left from London, and we're away and went back to London. And in the time that we were away and came back, just to give you some, time frame. This will tell you how old I am, Sonny. Um, we arrived back 3 days, 4 days before Live Aid, and it had all happened in the time that we'd been away. So we had heard nothing of this, and I had the opportunity to go to Live Aid, go to Wembley, um, or to go to this concert in the park, where the Queen and, all that were going to show up, and it was going to be this big, to do. Not having any sense of what Live Aid meant, I chose to go to the frickin' park. And I have kicked myself in the ass ever since. 'Cause, dude, what are you thinking? But and it was at the park. Then I heard all about Phil Collins doing the whole thing. He's going to fly from here. He's going to go over to Kennedy and take the Concorde and do all that. And I'm going, I bet you that's a really cool show. I wish we'd gone to that. Anyway, it's just e- everyone's kind of lived experience is very different, right? And mine was in complete isolation. So when I got back to Canada, there was all kinds of, okay, I'm not going to run around like a maniac anymore. I'm not going to run down subway stairs to catch the next subway train. I was totally in sort of Zen, chill out kind of mode. But coming back with all of this incredible stuff that I'd experienced culturally, including the music that we did here when we were at places like that incident I mentioned in EOS, and all of that new music that I'd gotten a hold of that was never picked up here. You could never have gotten here in Canada. So I'm not sure if I've really answered a question or anything,
No,
but
no,
it's sort of
was that was a dope deep dive. I think that's great. I actually I want to let's get right into it. If you were to choose keywords to describe your relationship with music, what would they be?
keywords. The number one word jumps out as essential. I don't think, and I find myself feeling empty when there's not been music in my environment, or I've not been experiencing it. So it's an essential piece. I mean, it's like something I don't think I could cut out. One of the great things about COVID has been able to really rekindle a connection with it, getting you know coming to understand some of the new technologies and things, and going, wow, I wish I had that back in the day. But just going in and doing these mixtapes where I'm just doing it because just for the love of the music. Anyone who's probably DJ'd for a while knows that after a while, that initial love also sometimes gets, the business aspect starts to work its way in. You want to play out, so you want to keep the dance floors full. So what are the crowds going to want? As opposed to what's a really great song? What really works melodically, harmonically? So having that sort of intimate one-to-one connection with it on a personal level, and re re-engaging that way with music has made me clear that essential is part of I don't know. I mean, I couldn't be with someone who didn't love music. My partner is a music lover, and some of our most fun discussions or things are where she's have you heard this? Listen to this. It's just great when she's teaching me all, and she hears things differently. She hears lyrics, I hear melody. Um, and that's such a great song. Well, I don't know, the melody's not so. Yeah, but listen to what they're saying. Ah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, and now I get it. So
Do you break from music? Is it that music comes on and you're able to use it as just background and move around, or is it always in the foreground for you?
oh no, there's points where it's definitely in the background for sure. I mean, it's um, I've got my home pods in the kitchen at the cottage, and I just put them on and put classical on in the morning, just as a you know hey Siri, play some classical, and I hope it doesn't. Oh, Siri just kicked in. Sorry.
Hey Siri, play Jello.
Yeah, exactly.
I I'm wondering, would you say that every situation has a soundtrack to it? If we're chopping up carrots for the soup, is there a soundtrack for that chopping of carrots? And if we're just sitting on a rock up on a mountainside, is there a soundtrack for that as well? When does silence happen?
Well, I don't know if I would go a one-to-one kind of thing that, sort of a causal kind of relationship. I think there are moments, I think there's just moments where certain music is appropriate and where it's not, and the same, just like when you're DJing a night, you can play the same songs, 2 weeks in a row. One week it works and the other week it face plants. One week you're a god, one week you're, oh, geez, are you ever going to play anything good? And it's the same songs. Same thing I think goes for music in, your daily life. There's things, there's times when it's just feels right and times when not. I mean, I'll play some stuff from a playlist in the car and I'll be totally digging it on the drive, maybe between Toronto and the cottage or something. And then, but if Carla's in the car, it's like, oh no, okay, nope, don't want to play. Yep, not gonna play that because that the environment itself has changed. We're on the same stretch of road, but just,
Is there ever
just
an
as in the
auxiliary
same way.
battle? Does the aux battle happen in the car on the rides back and forth on the road?
Oh no, I control. Yeah, but she does say, "Can you play?"
All
Can
right,
you?
so you
Yeah,
taking
oh for
requests
sure.
is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't put out the request list, but and
And
it's just because Siri doesn't recognize her voice. So otherwise, I
oh,
think she'd be
right,
doing the DJing herself.
I see. Right. Did it? And if it did, how did the alternative and new wave scene help the rave scene in Toronto?
Oh, I think rave was really alternative when it started, man. I think rave is heavily, especially the early, bunch of the early, breakbeat stuff and the heavy electronic stuff was, I mean, I mean, you're talking, Kraftwerk wrote the book, right? And Kraftwerk was an alternative band. It wasn't they weren't a rave band. They were getting played in the alternative clubs. They weren't playing, really being played in the house clubs or the mainstream clubs at all. That bubbled up. And I think most sort of, most underground stuff, comes from, starts with kind of an alternative kind of edge to it. The advances are made by those people that are really trying to push the boundaries, right? So yeah, in terms of direct precedents to rave, I think of big beat, new beat stuff was a lot of the new beat. In fact, like Juno Reactor and stuff, where some his stuff was getting played totally in the alternative clubs. All the I was playing a ton of alternative electronic stuff that could morph very easily into the rave scene, and a lot of the first parties we did, there was a ton of alternative club people that were there. They were the ones coming and checking it out. They had heard about it before a rave scene had really developed here. I think I mean there was the underground, the Exodus guys and stuff like that for sure. They were doing that was I mean I think generally recognized to be the progenitor of rave here in Toronto, and they were picking up on stuff from the UK. But a lot of those UK artists, they had been doing pretty, the stuff was pretty experimental. I mean, the sampling and stuff like that that was being done to use for grooves, for all the, all the crazy jungle stuff, the amazing polyrhythms and things like that were, New Beat had that, just it wasn't layered. It wasn't as prominent in a bunch of it, as well as all that, and then you just talk about the synths and those rich sound textures and things like that. That's becomes techno trance. But the alternative guys, the alternative electronic guys were using that 5, 7 years, 10 years before rave was around. New wave stuff, all of those rich soundscapes of the '80s were. It's the foundation for what we end up hearing in the '90s in rave.
Wild. How
That's
often were you?
that's my interpretation. Of course,
Yeah, no,
it's
no,
totally subjective, and everyone's going to have their opinion. There are going to be people listening to this and go, "What the hell is he talking about?" But and
yeah,
that's totally cool too. But that's my take on it. My experience.
exactly.
That's my experience.
How often were you in a record store?
Oh, I mean, there were weeks when it was like, "How often am I not?" I mean, by the time I really got, when I was full on, there was at least 2 full days in record stores.
When
2.5 days, full days in record stores.
so you're saying from like open to close, you would be going through and actually sampling what was being either coming in that was freshies, or were you in the was it both? Were you digging and freshies simultaneously? Were you only going on shipment days? Were you going on off days? Sorry,
Both.
that's five. It's like five questions right there.
Both, because the still crazy. But some of the places were great and setting me up. And going to Star Sound, the guys were amazing. Set me up on a turntable. They were pulling stacks aside. Had them. Here's your pile for this week, and I'd be there for 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours listening to the stuff. Poor Ahmed, he was like, dude, really, don't you have a home to go to? But
How
I
long did it take for you to build up a record collection that you thought to yourself, like, I'm ready, I can go and hit all these venues and do it up?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I was buying records before I was DJing, lots of records.
But when that happened, the consideration was just on a personal level. I mean, I believe that once you become a DJ, you're wanting to share your feelings. You believe in your feelings, and that other people have the same feelings as you. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe at least this is a strong component, a big ingredient of what's happening. And if you're just shopping for music, maybe you're okay to impress your friends or family, or if you're in a car, like you said, passing the aux back and forth or making requests. Um,
Oh,
music collection is personal. When that was happening, you weren't shopping with the intention of sharing, were you?
well, no, but I loved making tapes. I loved sharing what I was hearing with people. Hey, have you heard? Did you hear that? Have you heard these guys? The Eurythmics. Man, there's this song, that is just totally different from anything we've heard. So I always wanted to share. I don't think there was ever a moment where I ever felt that. I mean, I felt comfortable certainly going out and playing. I think there's probably a point at which, when I was really starting kind of burned out, when I wasn't being as aggressive as getting stuff. And that's when I kind of knew, yeah, all right, it's probably time. I could see the date to hang them up because I wasn't being as passionate about it. But I don't know if there was ever a point at which I thought I didn't have enough to share because I had been, I mean, I started as doing little parties, frat parties and, residence floor parties and bringing my two totally non-DJ friendly turntables, not made for vacuuming at all. I'm surprised I never popped a needle out of out of a stylus. Um, and just kind of hope that I got the record close to when it should start, and just doing that, hauling that around that gear around in my 1972 LTD, lime green LTD. Um, but it just sort of happened, and it was always, I was just wanted the new, fresh stuff. I always was looking for new sounds. That's what really was appealing. So I never felt like I had reached a level that, okay, now I'm good to go. It was always, I always felt I had stuff to play, even if it was stuff that probably wasn't appropriate. But I always just, once I sort of thought, yeah, I kind of want to try this DJing thing. By that point, I felt like I had the material to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have felt comfortable going out to do it.
Is this what our music collection is? Is it's a non-monogamous relationship? Because we love what we have, but we're still looking for new things as well. And we think to ourselves that this is okay, that our music collection is going to be okay with the new additions that we're bringing in.
I just think of it as an ever-growing circle of friends, and relationship you have with each individual piece of music that you love isn't mutually exclusive. I've never felt that, because I used to like prog rock, I can't like, you know, jungle, or I can't like, really aggro stuff, or I can't like really beautiful soft stuff. I that my record collection, it was open to everybody. So I'm a music slut. You know, yeah. Just no monogamy when it comes to that.
And your music likes it. So, yeah,
I mean, you know.
it's yeah. Maybe it's a form of voyeurism. I'm not sure. At the time, and maybe it's the same. Maybe the answer is the same right now. But at the time, who was your favorite DJ?
At what time?
The time that you started, I guess, getting a collection together. That you okay? How about this then, Iain? How did you know that you wanted to go into the direction of where you were, I guess, a rave DJ or an electronic music DJ? Or did you not consider yourself that? I'm hitting you on three different parts. I'm sorry, but
There's a bunch of different questions there. I mean, there are
yep, it
DJs
is.
that absolutely inspired me.
Okay.
Uh, so from a fearless musical programming standpoint, Dave Allen, the DJ at the Voodoo Club, was to this day one of the most fearless DJs I've ever heard. He would play such an incredible collection range of things. That's how I got into sort of alternative club dance or dance element music. He would play he'd play hip hop, he would play deep dark goth, he would play really rich electronic new wave, and he would play it back to back. And he would I mean, the classic story is Simple Minds, New Gold Dream. The week it came out, the album, the week it came out, he loved it so much, he got on the mic. This is the new album from Simple Minds. Put the ret needle on, played the entire side, left the booth, went out and danced for the entire side of the album. This is Saturday night, prime time. He runs out, so it's, he realizes he doesn't even know the album well enough. He got it that day. He comes back, he hears the ka-dunk, ka-dunk. Oh, album must be over. Runs back up, gets on the mic, side two, flips the record over and plays the entire thing. I mean, talk about fearless. And the floor is full, right? Okay, an amazing album, but but he couldn't mix worth a damn. So then there's Danny Cochran at Twilight Zone. So Danny did the UK dance floor, and Danny was the first guy who I heard could mix alternative music. When I went down, first time I heard him, and going, "Oh my God, you can beat mix this stuff? This is amazing!" So he was inspired, probably the inspiration to go and learn how to do that. I mean, guys like Mark Oliver, from a seamless, artistic, melodic. I don't think I've ever heard a guy who could just weave, dance music and really make it dramatic and really just make it just a flow and an artistry to it. Guys like Johnny are amazing mixers, just amazing mixers, and can program the snot out of things. I have huge respect for him as well. But there was something about, I just remember hearing Mark. It was a small little club over on Jarvis Street that he was playing, and I just remember being there, and it was me and maybe 25, 30 people. And it didn't matter for Mark. Mark was all about the music, and just hearing him do that. And then, of course, hearing him in big rooms and going, yeah, okay, this is why you are next level, man. Because it was like a story. He was telling a story musically. It was just gorgeous, beautiful. So, I'm not even sure if, I mean, that's kind of
it answers a part of it.
focusing
I
on the
guess
first question. Yeah, it was sort of,
the other part. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going.
go for it, man. Yeah, what was the next part? Because I've forgotten. I'm gone down the
I'm
garden
curious.
path.
I know. Were you a club DJ? Would you consider yourself an alternative DJ? Were you a rave DJ? What was the type of DJ that you would consider yourself to be at that time? I mean, like now is maybe a different conversation, but maybe it's not.
Well, now I'm not a DJ. I'm
Yeah?
I'm
Explain the
doing my
mixtape you just
thing,
made
but
last week.
I'm
Explain the
just.
mixtape you just made last week. Forget it. Don't sell that to me. It's in your blood.
Well, no, it's in my blood.
Yeah.
I. I mean, I was probably always an alternative DJ. It bothered me. I didn't like being pegged as something. I definitely wasn't mainstream dance. And I know I had to, I tried to do a kind of, anytime I ever ran into trouble musically or with a gig was when I tried to play what I thought I should play, as opposed to playing what I really felt was right. So, I never read charts, music charts. I never listened to radio specifically to find out tracks. The way I discovered it was always just listening to stuff or listening to people. People would come up and ask for stuff. Eventually, like some of the request lines, I felt bad for people standing in line for requests and waiting too long. So they could just write it down, so they wouldn't have to waste their time waiting for me, because it's busy. You know what it's like spinning. Anyone who's done it knows that you get, so it's hard when you've got a lineup of 10, 15 people waiting to make requests and stuff, or just want to chat. It gets really bothersome. So, but one of the great things about that list was, they could leave the request, but I could go also discover the stuff. So I think if I'm going to answer your question, I mean, I guess I really was first and foremost an alternative DJ, but I always felt that I had a foot in two territories, one in the alternative, sort of really kind of guitar driven, and one very much in the electronic area. And I tried to straddle the two. And I think maybe that's, at that time, helped to make me a little unique, because usually they were quite distinct. And so that's why I think my nights ended up having a bit of a character that appealed to certain people, because they wanted to hear that mix. And I didn't want to just play stuff with 808s and 909s, and I didn't want to just play stuff with guitars, and I really wanted to be able to play all of the stuff. So I'd say an electronic alternative DJ is what I would classify myself as. There was a point, certainly, when I was totally stoked about the rave stuff, and I realized that there could be a problem with identity, that I also had the E-N, DJ Iain, but E exclamation point N,
It's
as
right there. Actually, I was curious about that, because that's you did like a name change, but not a name change. You did like a phonetic change, but maybe not a pronunciation change.
so the idea was to help people know that at those gigs they shouldn't expect the alternative stuff. It was going to be all rave, trance, breakbeat, some jungle, you know, uh, breaks, that kind of stuff. That's what I was going to do in those gigs. And so that's the only time I ever used that, was when that was really going to be that was the event. That was a rave. It was a party.
And you're bringing up something that is actually getting to my next question, because of the name change. And we didn't we when we I wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't part of this era that you're talking about. It would have been dope to see it, which is why I want to learn so much about it, right? Um, did word of mouth best the message of print or media? You guys, I'm saying you guys, I'm talking about all the DJs then, didn't have the benefits of the type of broadcast that's possible today. It was different. I mean, you could have broadcasted. It probably would have been very expensive to try and get that message out the way you wanted to get it out, because stuff had to be created from the ground up, and independently. So that's why I'm wondering, like, what was it? What was it about word of mouth that was able to transform what was happening from not much to a whole bunch of people talking about it? Mixtapes,
Well,
flyers.
so I think I would suggest that it wasn't just word of mouth. Word of mouth is key. Word of mouth is key in all the promo, right? Word of mouth is worth 1,000 times what a flyer or a poster or an ad is. When someone says, "Hey, check this out," it would take 100 ads before you're going to get the same effect that one person saying, "Hey, check, you should check this." Someone you trust says, "Oh wow, I heard this and it's amazing." But I think you build up sort of a critical mass because of all the other stuff that's around it. So that word of mouth comes about because there's all the other stuff that's around it. We used to say, and when we were marketing for our clubs or for the parties, that really people always had to hear about something in two different ways for it to stick. If they just saw posters, it wouldn't be effective. But if they saw a poster and they got a flyer, or if they saw a poster and then they heard a spot, or if they got a poster and then someone mentioned it, then it got real traction, and then so the word of mouth would build. I think word of mouth could be really destructive. So and I see it. I mean, I think social media is actually in some ways is even built that. There's some of the sort of party or nostalgia groups where things can get pretty gnarly pretty fast, and that's a kind of word of mouth that's happening. Sort of someone gets on a tear and others sort of jump in, and then they can go off the garden path. I think when back in the day, people, and I think, to be honest with you, I think to some extent probably we suffered a little bit, or others benefited more than what we did, sort of in Nitrous Atlantis. I think there was a group that really, where the word of that loved what we did, and then there were others that were, wow, you guys are way too commercials. You're killing the scene, and so that had a negative impact. I would have argued that the scene that we had in part because of some of the stuff that we did, and specifically Nitrous Atlantis, but guys like Alex, Pleasure Force guys, some of the the I think maybe the Pleasure Force party that gets talked about the most is the one with Delight. And people will argue quite vociferously, but I'm just like, Delight's not a rave. Their stuff's 110 beats per minute, man. That's not rave. That was not rave back then. Their big hits were all down tempo. I'm the first guy that played Delight in Toronto. I got Delight on a promo disc in New York and brought it back and played it at the Lizard Lounge. Played What Is Love and Delight theme and all that. The week it got back and played the snot out of it. It wasn't available here in Canada on any level at that point. I love the guys, but they weren't rave. But Pleasure Force did this amazing job in bringing them in and making it a party around them, and it was great. There was an incredible event.
What was Delight? Was it Acid House? And is Acid House not rave?
Well, they were. I'm talking about the hits, their album tracks and stuff like that for sure. But the hits, the stuff that was, that everyone got known for. You play it, you could play a bunch of songs you wouldn't necessarily know it was Delight, but you played What Is Love, everyone knows that's Delight, right? That's what broke. That's what got them out there. So I have to be careful about what I say about that. I have to be careful about a lot of things I'm probably saying, but
It's too late. We're live. That's
Here it
bad.
comes. Here it comes. Yeah. Johnny's going to stand at my door, gonna go,
You're with us now.
I mean, I think they were, to some extent they were alternative. There was, there's a total underground New York kind of party thing, but they were art. There was a real art, that whole artistic component to them that wasn't, the big rave, glitzy stuff. Now their clothes and stuff, yeah, for sure, very ravey. And she was just fabulous front person. But I would just argue quite, and to this day, I really don't think that they were rave, but it brought people into the scene, same way we did with some of our events. As soon as we stopped doing the warehouse underground, found film shoot kinds of things, as soon as we went to the Science Center, it was a whole new level, right? And it's like, okay, this is no longer hiding in the shadows. And
we're jumping ahead a little bit. I was curious, actually, how did Nitrous form?
So the story, so I went
when you're ready.
The year before that, the year before that Delight, anyway, probably it was 91. I went down to the New Music Seminar, and I had just started my production work And I went down to go and try to make some connections at the New Music Seminar, big industry thing. And was down there with a couple of, I only knew one or two guys from Toronto that were there. But one of them said, dude, and he talk about an alternative guy. This guy, serious alternative head. He said, Limelight tonight. And it was Tuesday night. Okay, what the hell is Limelight? It's this place, it's a church, and it's way down, the bottom of down in lower Manhattan. Got to go. So we, okay. So we pile into this cab. My girlfriend who was with me, myself, a couple of others, we pile into this cab, this, what, a $35 cab ride, and get down there, and we go in, and it's, the church, Limelight, the church, very famous club. And it's like, wow, this is a really cool space. And we walk in, and there's a band on stage, and it sounds, if they were an Eastern European band, and I swear they were killing cats on stage. It was horrible. Like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? Well, thank God it was the last time. And this was
Well, that's
probably,
alternative.
we got down there about 11:30, 12 o'clock. But I wasn't going there for alternative. I was going there for this cool electronic thing. And I get this. I'm thinking, okay, okay, $30 cab ride. We gotta, let's at least, it's a cool space. Let's have a beer. Thank God that was the last song. We got there for the last song, and they were packing up. So we're having a beer, and it's like, oh, the Rolling Rock. This is kind of good. Never had this before. This is tasty. All right, And I realized that people are starting to filter in. And so have another one, but then I look around, and the place is packed. So all, okay, something's happening here. Maybe dude wasn't totally off. So all of a sudden, the lights go out. The place is rammed by this point, and this is 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, going on to Wednesday. The lights go out, and all of a sudden you hear this din 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 din, and from above, it's this church, it's like cathedral size. I see these lights up there, and with the sound, the din 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 din, the strobe lights or spotlights are um, going in time to the music. And it does it again. Dun, 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 dun. And I look and I see, shit, there's stuff coming down from the ceiling. Fucking inches coming down from the ceiling. And then it kicks in, and it's T99 Anastasia. Dun, 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 dun. And when the song kicks in, when the music kicks in, I look around, and I swear that, this church, there's like 600-700 people in this thing. They're all about 3 feet off the ground. The place explodes. And I dragged myself out of there about 12:30 lunchtime next day, and the place is still going. It's just madness. Tuesday night, it was reunion Tuesdays. So I come home, come back from this, and I go, we are so doing something like this here. That was amazing. So I get back to Toronto, and I'm talking to my partner James, and Don Burns happens to come down. It was at the Lizard Lounge, and Burns comes down to the Lizard, and James is and I are talking, and James is talking to Burns because everyone knows Burns. He's on CFNY at the time, and he mentions that I'd mentioned this, and Burns is like, yeah, I want to do something like that. I heard about something like that in LA, and so this is the beginning of, not only, longstanding business relationship, but, amazing friendship and such. So we connect, and Burns knows a couple of other guys, one of whom is, I think Mike Stein actually mentioned him the other day, who works for a real estate company, who happened to have keys to a building that was slated for demolition. It was an office building, 2-story office building, and he could get us access to this building. And so we decide, okay, well, we're going to do a party. And we do these cheap flyers, photocopied flyers. I find this picture from a magazine about oh God, having a brain fart, black and white dog, fire, the dog for, his name was Dashiell. We had one. Oh, anyway, black and
A
white.
Dalmatian?
So much Dalmatian. That's one. The Dalmatian over the black and white checkerboard, and all we did was put the phone number, the date, and the phone number. We got a phone line, an info line. And unfortunately, I think the info line was Mike Stein's, because Mike joined us. I knew Mike through Sam the Record Man, working with Mike at Sam's. And James and I both worked with Mike at Sam's. And yeah, and we put this thing together. I think there were 6 or 7 of us in Nitrous to start. And I think Mike kindly slash innocently slash boy, he probably regrets it now. I know he regrets it because we had quite a heated discussion. Agreed that his phone number would be the number on the phone on the that people would call. So it wasn't
What made the conversation heated? Why did it go that direction?
well, because he was going. We were meeting, I think, a few days before the first event, and he's like, "Oh man, this is nuts! My answering machine won't stop. It's going at all hours." His phone was ringing all hours. You know, and this is the first indication we had. Oh, we were going, something might be going on here. We had no idea what to expect, right? No idea what to expect.
I'm
And
not a big believer in coincidence, Ian. Is it what was it that all of you are coming together to form the Avengers of raving, and
oh, I'm
and
so
much like the Avengers, everyone's got their own backstory on how it the team forms, and I'm interested in what was because we're all proverbially the flies on the wall right now to the story. What was in the water? What was going on in Toronto? Was it radio? Was there a certain an underground magazine? Was it something about the local club DJs at the time? And if so, why was this music happening? Why was it that you guys were coming together with the love of this music, and not as DJs, but as people, as promoters that wanted to share this with people who were probably either aware or unaware?
well. I think it's because well, it had been happening in the UK, so we were, a year or two behind what was already going on in the UK. So the information was coming over. We knew, we'd heard about this, or people like myself were going off to places where it was happening. So New York or whatever, and experiencing the Limelight reunion thing. And um, and I think it was the cool thing was that it wasn't just the music, that it was a whole, it was an experience, right? And that's what we certainly for Nitrous Atlantis, we were very focused on. Whatever we do, it has to be unique. We're never reusing a space. We're not going to ever do just a traditional thing. It has to be something special, so that you have to be there to experience it. It's never going to happen again. So if you it's unique. So I think there was all the other trappings about it, right? It was go to a meeting point, go to then with our first Nitrous, it was a guy in a fedora and a trench coat in a darkened doorway. That was the address you were given. So I can't remember, something Jarvis on Jarvis Street. And he then, you went there and you had to talk to him, and then he would send you around the corner to where there was a hot dog stand. Could be buying hot dogs, but you could also buy your ticket to the event. And when you paid your ticket, when you got your ticket, then you were told, block away, and you go down through the underground parking entrance, and you go up these stairs, and that took how you got to the party.
This was a planned situation. Like, as promoters, you guys, you put together this plan that the object of it was to give a pre-adventure before you arrived at the destination.
Scavenger hunt, man. Totally. Yeah.
Scavenger hunt.
Yeah, totally.
Why was it necessary to do it, or was it something that you wanted to do?
It's a combination, I mean, there's a little bit of, okay, let's face it, you're not supposed to put 2,000 people partying in an, second office building um, without any licenses. And, first couple events, because I mentioned there's an alternative crowd, we serve beer. So we had, I think, 8, 10 kegs in the basement of that building. And we used the dumbwaiter to send the beer up. People could buy beer at the first couple of events. It was so totally totally illegal. The cops got called on us so we did that first event, and then sorry, I'm doing a whole bunch of stories here, but we did the first event, and a couple days, 2 or 3 days before the first event, we got the opportunity with through Shep to do 2 Unlimited in 3 weeks. I was like, holy shit, how are we going to do this, in 3 weeks? And where are we going to find a space and blah, blah, blah. Do you want to do this? Yeah, of course we want to do this. They had just that massive hit at the time. And so anyway, what we decided to do in part to make the party different, in addition to painting the whole space black, to change the vibe on the space so it wasn't the same.
You guys painted the whole space black.
Yeah, for the second one. Yeah, the first one we just cleared everything out. We had a big room.
How long did you do it before the party? Did you guys did you plan it? Did you stage it days in advance so that the odor, it didn't smell like fresh paint when you rolled inside? Were you like, fuck it, get high off these fumes?
Well, it wasn't even paint, man. Dude, it wasn't even paint. It was driveway sealant. Because that was cheaper. And we got these huge.
Okay, so let's go even now.
Massive things of driveway
sealant. Was this 48 hours before the party?
No. It was a week, 10 days before, knowing that it was going to smell really gnarly. But
bonus.
But anyway,
so the ticket purchase is.
The cop story is, or one of the things we decided to do differently, was to do electric Jello shooters for people.
Two L's.
Sorry?
2 L's.
2 L's. Yes, 2 exactly. L's. Yes, exactly. Yep. I have to be clear about that. So we're in this building, and right next to the building that we're in, so we're in one of the offices making the Jello. So we've got these kettles going, we've got the Jello stuff going on, but right next door, 10 feet away is an apartment building. Somebody in the apartment sees us making Jello. They don't know what the hell's going on. They call the cops. 2 days, 3 days before the party, the cops show up while we're making Jello. It's like 6 cops show up, and we're there. They think we're, some meth lab or something.
Well, were you aware of the anti-gelatin movement at the time?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Okay, no, yeah, that's my big moment. Listen, I want to jump in. I'm curious about something.
Sorry, man.
Why was it illegal? Why not legal venues? And was the music wrong for clubs?
No, you didn't want. Again, that's not unique, right? That wasn't unique. That had to be a special kind of thing. Had to be half of the experience was not knowing where you were going to go. In those early parties, not knowing where you were going to go, but building up. We had hoped to build up this. It was a sense of adventure, and then. When you get to that, the ultimate destination, then you have this, this really fresh sound, this music that was not getting played in any clubs. This is pre-factory. This is pre, any of the clubs were nobody was playing any of this stuff, or very. If you were, you may have gotten, a couple of tunes, but even 2 Unlimited, as cheese as they are considered. That was at that time was like a totally new sound. Like,
yeah,
oh my god!
Then was it cheese? Was the word on the street 2 Unlimited is cheese, or was the word on the street is that this is new?
Well, at the time it was new.
Right. It
was really new.
Right. I'm thinking of also Black Box was in and around the same time, and I think about the soaring melodies that were coming out of Italy, the entire Italo house movement, and I feel like it really also affected a lot of the stuff that was coming out of New York.
That was, but Black Box, you see, I would not have considered that. I mean, that was really commercial, even at that time, as far as my sense. Remember, I'm coming from the alternative sphere, right? But they're that was kind of something that could definitely, that was being played in the boys' nights, that was playing, that was being played in the clubs.
But that was adapted to it, though. I'm thinking about when Black Box happened. I mean, this is house music, commercial house music, sure, but house music is house music, is it?
Yeah, but house music had been going. God, we did the first house music night at Nuts and Bolts, man, in 84, 83. 3. We did House Mondays.
Other
You
acts like
know, all-
Technotronic as well.
so Technotronic they were getting pretty commercial. That was the commercial sound of rave for me anyway. Um, it was it wasn't sort of the the Maydays or the raving I'm raving. That was sort of the big things. It had it wasn't doing sort of a twist in quite the same way. It had a real house sort of underpinning to it that I thought some of the more adventurous rave stuff, the more interesting stuff in rave was a lot more broken up, and it was a lot more edgy, had a lot more um, you think about what the early Prodigy stuff was doing, man. That was gnarly.
But that
And that
stuff was
that brought so
charting. That
much of
was
the energy.
actually sitting on a commercial chart in the UK. It would never touch the stuff over here in either Canada or the United States. I mean, eventually Prodigy did once they moved over to Maverick Records and did Smack My Bitch Up. This, now everyone knew who Prodigy was. Uh, there's a lot of discussion that Prodigy, sorry, changed their sound when that album happened, but I kind of disagree. I think to
I
myself
don't think
that
it did.
it made sense. Uh, Earlier today, I just discovered actually in 2015, Prodigy put out an album. I had no idea, and I started listening to it. And I really liked it.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Anyways, moving on. I'm curious.
They went through a bit of a dip, but yeah, the
I'm not. I
2015
mean,
stuff is pretty fresh. Yeah, it sounds good.
it's.
Yeah.
I think that if you're an artist, a band, an act that's putting out music, and you have a super big moment that I think, as a fan, know, what are you admiring about the project when it hits you? Were you really loving the song and not so much the artist? Are you really into their artistry and perhaps the mechanic, the engineering aspect of what it is that they're delivering? There's so many different levels on how we can look at and grade what it is that we're really enjoying. Maybe it's all of it. Maybe it's just the presentation. So many people oh, I love how they dance, and be like, that's great. How's the music? How's the music? um, I want to get to something. Did you, and if so, how important was it to separate yourself as a DJ and a promoter?
Uh, Vital, essential. I
This
never,
is the key word
I,
for tonight.
yeah, yeah, I guess so. But I really felt that the two need to be split. Uh, I detested promoting myself. I still hate it. I want to share the stuff, but I don't want to do the come dig me thing. And I was, quite taken. Some guys could do it and had no problem with it, and I have no issue with anyone who does or did. And I feel that so maybe that sounds a little disingenuous. I didn't want to go direct. I mean, I wanted to promote what I was doing because I wanted to play for people. I wanted people to be there. I know that people enjoy more when there's people there. So it was all sort of a create. I just wanted to really focus on the music because I found if I focused on the promotion, it negatively affected the music. So I early on, well, my first gig, Nuts and Bolts, I was actually the promotions director for the club, and they made me a DJ. But that was the last time I was really heavily involved in the promotion. After that point, I had a promoter always, and I felt it was really important to do so. Um, because I think you do. I think you need to. It's two different things. You're wearing two different hats, and I think that the two can really negatively affect. I think the music has to be artistic, has to come from that kind of focus, has to come from your heart, has to come from your spirit. You have to do it because you believe in it in itself. And promotion is you're wearing a different. It's a whole different skill set, and it's also a different focus. It is about numbers, people. Um, it's a marketing thing, and the music should not be marketing. The music should be art. Otherwise, it ends up undercutting the music. So I 100%, and I hated it, and anytime I did it badly, and or did it half-assed because I hated it so much. So
What role did you have in Nitrous and Atlantis? Were you part of the booking process?
So Burns handled the DJs almost exclusively. Burns was our music guy. We had quite distinct roles. Again, we felt that it was best to get a team that we'd be better as a team, and we each had our own individual I mean, aside from the first first couple of parties, which was we didn't know what the hell we were doing. But after we had done the first couple of parties, we ended up sitting down. Okay, you know what? We're going to do this. We love doing it. We got to make sure that we're going to all this effort is going to be worth it. We're not going to lose our shirts, because if we lose our shirts, we won't be able to keep doing it. So we need to make sure that at least we break even, so that we can keep doing this, and maybe make some dough, so that we can put some money into a fund, so that we can do bigger things. So I mean, numbers were definitely part of it. So I was kind of the admin guy. I would often get the spaces. I would organize the team. Burns was the booker. He was, dude, he had the connection. He had connections, but he also, that was what he knew. And he wasn't great at a number of other things, and he would fully admit it. But he was good at that. He had great relationships. Okay, you're that guy. James was the marketing promotion guy. I would work with him on sort of big picture ideas and concepts. Claudio was our design guy, and we would work. Once we had a space, Claudio would go and really imagine it to make it work for people. In that and that was sort of our the big core. The Nitrous guys was a lot more. It wasn't that the roles weren't nearly as defined, because there were 7 of us or 6 of us, and so we were all doing different things. But I would traditionally be sort of the guys, or we'd have the meetings I'd kind of run the meetings. I'd kind of get the, okay, you guys, okay, here, now have we handled this? How about this? What about security? And I was the budget guy too. I would do, Burns sat us down, got us connected with Gary Cormier, the Garys, one of the early independent promoters. And Gary, bless his soul, gave us his, a sample spreadsheet on how to cost events. And we used it, and we could tell 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, we knew how many people we were going to have at the event, and we knew what our costs had to be in order to break even. Yeah.
Is this template that was given to you, would you say that this is a timeless template, or is the template, was it specific to that moment?
No, it was used for all kinds of events, any sort of, live event, concerts.
What a massive advantage. That's incredible.
Oh, it was huge. It was a game changer in terms of how we were able to survive and how we were able to do what we did.
Wow.
Because we wouldn't have been able to. And we had one event where 2 weeks out, we looked at the numbers and went, "We're screwed, man. It's."
Was it true?
Sorry, yeah, it was. It was.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's dope. I
we
mean, like,
lost.
I'm sorry, but I think the idea of it is wild. It kind of nukes my next question, because I was going to ask you what the differences were between booking a live PA and a DJ.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I mean, riders are different. Some of the production stuff is different.
I guess I'm not
But
talking about the mechanic of it. I mean, I guess as far as the performance, and was this something that that had to get educated? I'm wondering, as far as the promotion level, when people saw the names on the flyers, were they expecting them to be DJs? Were they expecting people to turn up and be playing this music actually on synthesizers and samplers and DATs?
um,
How is it that you were able to tell people what they were getting? I mean, I
oh,
remember
right,
seeing
right,
flyers, for example, on really big events, and it would be, this artist live PA. It would say it,
right.
right,
Yep,
right next to the name, to let you know it wouldn't be a DJ set, or it'd be, for example, the Chemical Brothers, or Crystal Method coming in and into Toronto, and they're doing, it would say DJ set.
right. And that's what we would have done. We didn't do a ton of live PAs. That wasn't our focus. We did a few. We had Moby Orbital. We did 2 Unlimited. Most of the events were DJ, concept, space focused. We weren't a live PA organization per se.
Again, also almost, I'm wondering if you had any insight. Like, did PAs ever request to DJ instead of perform live? Did you find that that was a common thing that was happening? Do you even know about this type of insight?
I'll be honest with you, Josh. I'm not that
Right.
well
I
versed
guess
in it because
yeah.
again, it really wasn't our focus, so we weren't even, most the guys, Moby played for us a couple of times, and both times it was DJ set. I can't remember if we indicated that or not, but at that point it wasn't. I don't know how. Yeah, he was one of those guys that seemed to slip quite seamlessly between the two, and no one really seemed to care. Because he'd play his own stuff on record, or he'd perform it. So, but honestly, man, I'm not a particularly good guy to ask about that.
Well, maybe this you might be. How were the great lessons of nitrous helping you with Atlantis?
Interesting. That's a great question. I think one lesson we learned was, we needed to have some focus and defined roles. So going from sort of a kind of amorphous, uh, roles kind of evolved in nitrous, but there's never anything really clear as to who was going to do what. It was great because everyone was, would chip in. It was all hands on deck, uh, as much as possible. But it was also kind of clear that some people, the four of us who went on to do Atlantis, we were, with no disrespect to the other guys, they had other stuff going on in their lives. We were, this was our, something that we were really passionate about. So the four of us who went on to do Atlantis were, those other guys were, kind of, I mean, we're, we're still friends. So I think it was, I think it was fine. They, but it was clear that their hearts weren't in it quite the same way. It was kind of a curio, I think, for them. Whereas, Burns, Claudio, James, and I was like, man, we love this, and we want to take this to the next level, and it requires a commitment, and our roles. It was much easier to define within 4 than it was within 6. So,
Can you tell us the story of the rave that was nearly 2,000 feet high in the sky? The CN, the CN Tower. It's relevant because we're nearly 14 feet underground. I mean, I hope, I don't know when the last time you were in a nightclub, but here we are.
We are underground. Yeah, buddy. I want to tell you, by the way, I've been meaning to say. So I drove about 3 hours to come down and do this. I came down to the city to do this, just so I'd have better internet, but also because down here in my home office, door number 2 is my utility room, and I thought it was appropriate that I'd be with you in our utility rooms close by.
Excellent.
Anyway,
Thanks for making that trip for
so
us.
so the yeah. The ice sky, the raving, higher than you've ever raved before. uh,
I get, there's a few, I've got a few puns, right?
there were a few in there. We certainly had fun with some of the flyer stuff. Well, I mean, it was actually kind of an easy sell after the Science Center. The Science Center was the biggie. The Science Center was the game changer. The CN Tower fell in really easily once they heard, oh, you done something at the Science Center? Yeah, no problem. Okay, so what do you want to do? Oh, you want to use the whole tower?
You mean
Yeah, no
as
problem.
someone who wanted to rent a new space, having the science center created like a threshold level for other people who might rent you to look at it, be like, okay, if you've done that, then you can do this.
Doors open. Doors were
All
open.
right.
Now, Science Center, countless stories about that. The hoops, the cops, what was it, 3 days before saying, oh, by the way, you can only have, yeah, the spaces will handle 5,000, but no, you can only have 2,000. That's all we're going to allow you to have. Oh, and by the way, you got to have 30 pay duties, which includes the mounted unit in the valley. And yeah, and that's why we, That
But you'd
was
been mugged
like,
before this happened, so you had an experience with mugging. So listen,
yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case, but
are we sure?
but the CN Tower was, and we could have done we could have done we in fact the reason we kind of stopped was one of my ultimate goals was to do Union Station, and we could have done Union Station.
Fuck.
We were given
Really?
we were given permission to do Union Station.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, we wouldn't have said where it was. We just would have had meeting point Union Station. Oh yeah, by the way, there you are. But we decided not to do it because we had to be out by 8 o'clock in the morning for the Sunday trains. And we just looked at each other, and we said, we could tell you we're going to do that, but there's no fucking way we're going to be out of here by 8 o'clock in the morning.
I mean, that would have made for an interesting, can you imagine the trains, people boarding?
Oh, it would have been,
I mean,
yeah, no, it would have been a disaster for
the
them. It would
most
have been a disaster
colorful
for us,
boarding
but
ever in the history of the
I'm just
and
thinking
go.
about people coming into work on Monday, dragging their sorry butts in, getting off the commuter trains and walking into that.
You know what I mean? Wake
Oh,
up.
yeah.
You awake?
Yeah, I made a wrong turn at Albuquerque, man.
Were the promotion nerves equal to the nerves of playing a set as a DJ? Or was this template the great equalizer for what it was that you guys were doing?
No, I mean, it's still tons of risk. Still tons of risk, because by the time you go to do something you've committed, you got tons of, expenses that, non-recoupable expenses. So promotion was definitely worrisome. The nice thing about having that template gave us a little bit of leeway to flex, when things maybe not, we weren't getting traction that we kind of had hoped we would get. They gave us a chance to sort of adapt. Whereas in the DJ set, you're adapting is, every, within 30 seconds if you're face planting with what you're playing. So but you can turn on a dime,
I want to jump into
turn
that
off
real
the
quick.
record and then go to the next. But
I'd like to address what you're talking about right now. Do you feel that because you were you able to hone that skill and that ability at Limelight? Was it Limelight what was Limelight for you? Because how often were you playing there?
Limelight was a weekly. I was there for almost 10 years. Sunday night, every Sunday.
Holy shit, Ian.
Yeah, it was a great night. My favorite night ever. Favorite night ever.
What this early idea of being a resident DJ at a nightclub. What was it? How did it happen? Did the club approach you? Did they have some? Was it the owner? Did they have a manager? Were they interested in you as a person and your ability to market the night? Were they interested in the music that you were going to be playing?
So the manager was Boris Kaimovich. Boris and I had worked together at a place called the Copa, which was Toronto's first mega club. It was up in Yorkville, and they did just crazy things there. And I had done a night there called Piccadilly Circus. It was a Sunday night. It was the Human Zoo, and so we did some, we had some cool stuff. It didn't. Copa was too big for what Alternative could handle at the time. It fit 2,000 people. But I got to know Boris there, and Boris ended up going to being the manager at Limelight, as many probably know. Wonderful, wonderful guy. You meet people in the industry. You got 5 people in every industry that are special, and Boris is absolutely one of them. So yeah, and I can't remember if it was James that spoke to my promoter, James Kikanovich, who had spoken to Boris, or how that happened. But Boris knew what we did, was open to it, had an owner that he had to do some serious convincing for. ZC did not get that kind of music at all. So Boris was the champion, and Boris is a defender on some cases, took a while for the night to get going. Maybe we had like 150, maybe 200 people for the first, couple of months, and Boris had to go and go to the mat to say, hey, give it time. And eventually, we're getting 1,500 people on a Sunday night. And he Yeah, it was funny. I was thinking about things to talk about, and I'm really glad. Just for those watching, I'll tell you, Jello is absolutely resolute not to talk about anything beforehand. So this is all, and I love this man. It's so organic. But I was thinking about. She's, I wonder what you want to talk about, and one of those things was the importance of having someone from the club administration sort of on your side, especially when you're trying to do something that's a little unusual, kind of like what I was doing, my genre. It, some people just it took you had to be there to get it. Boris used to come out from his office because I would be playing like Heavy Ministry or White Zombie, and then go and throw a Tom Jones song on. And Boris was sure he was going to go. In fact, a couple times he got on the radio security to the DJ booth that he would have to go and defend me. And then he'd come out and he'd see that people were just having a ball and loving it. So, that was that kind of crowd that they would go, okay, you can play Michael Jackson up against, Pantera or some really aggro, AC, not even ACDC, anyway, something really, gnarly, and it would work. So, um, yeah. So Limelight was a really special place. Made in part of the space was great. It was the first alternative. It was the first club that an alternative night got top quality sound, lighting. Intelligent lighting. Alternative clubs didn't have it, man. The first club I went to, the Voodoo Club I mentioned, their lighting system consisted literally. It was, I think it was 10 par cans, 2 on a channel. He had 5 home lighting switches. That was the light. That was the light system. He would flip light switches on and off. That's what the lighting guy would do all night long. That was how he did it. It was amazing. And he had this amazing mohawk and this hair to be doing this. Danny Regan, man, he's still a legend. And he would do this for, whatever, 10 hours. Light switches going. No strobe lights, nothing. So Limelight
He is the show. It wasn't the
was
lights.
the Limelight space was just such an amazing opportunity for alternative music to, for alternative people to come down and go, okay, wow, we get to hear this kind of music on this kind of killer sound system with this kind of lighting, smoke, great space, fabulous bars, beautiful sort of ambient lighting and place to sit. It was like, wow, it was gold. Yeah, quite a step forward for the alternative world. It was great, and thanks to Boris, for taking the chance.
I had a question that came in that someone was curious to know if there was any truth to this. Did the elevator at the CN Tower did it stop? Did a bunch of ravers get trapped in an elevator during the party?
Not that I recall.
All right.
I don't remember hearing anything, but I do know that they may have been trapped of their own volition. I know some people just sat on the elevator and go, "Wow, man, this is
Going
great!"
for the
Having
going for the ride or not getting out. Elevator's
uh,
full.
there was the whole space race. That ride was there, and there was all the laser tag. Who cares, man? Let's just get on the elevator.
And everything was open at the party while it was happening. I mean, the whole thing was running. You guys didn't have any of the exhibits shut down. I believe actually because I was there. I believe that even the gift shop was open.
I think they had the whole place. Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
CN
Same
Tower
with
is
the
like we're ready for the rinse.
same with and that was kind of important for us for the Science Center. They kept everything open. They had Van de Graaff generator. They had, everyone whacked out their minds with their hands on the static generator, and oh yeah, the whole thing was open. I just memories are foggy. So some people were sharing some videos of it the other day, and it was just like the party on the escalators going up and down, all the different layers. Like everyone was, "Woo, hey man, it was great. All the costumes and stuff, so much fun." Yeah. Anyway, good times.
I wanna make stuff unfoggy just for a sec. If we were to think back to the legendary parties, what would you say were the legendary parties for nitrous? And what was if we're picking out one, maybe not legendary, maybe they all are. Let's hear it from you. And then what was the legendary moment for Atlantis?
Well, in terms of legend, definitely I think it was the fourth nitrous. It became known as the mud rave. So There was a guy that we got to know who was like really, he'd come out to some of the parties and he had a farm up in Markham. And he said, "Do you want to use my farm for a party?" It's like, hell yeah, that sounds great. And Claudio did this amazing design. We brought in, bumper cars, Ferris wheel. We had a big, yeah, we yeah, still working on the beer thing. We had a big Perrier truck, but there was no Perrier in that. It was another beverage. And then we had this massive white tent, and Moby played that event, and the thing about it was that they got all the stuff in there sort of 4 or 5 days in advance. Everything is all set up. And like I say, Claudio had done this really great plot thing. And we had big corn roasts and stuff going on anyway. And you had to take those buses up to it. So it was a big epic trip. Well, anyway, it's out of the city, right? And so we'd had some rain, and we were like, okay, well, it rained a few days ago. We'll be okay. Anyway, we go up to the site 2 or 3 days before, and it's a sea of freaking mud, and it's clay mud, right, man? It's nasty, and the stuff is way at the back of the property. So you got to haul your butt back there. And the cool thing about it, and this was the idea, we'd put it behind the rise of a hill so that you'd get there, you'd hear the music, but you'd come up and you walk over, and it was this massive white tent with the lights going on it, and it would be this reveal. But it was mud, and it was a sea of mud. And so what the guy did was it wasn't mud. I mean, it was like a tall grass. Anyway, he went out and he, because we had this big parking area, so we bought, I can't remember, 500,000 bales of hay, of straw, to put down as a layer to separate people from the mud. And especially for the dance floor area, because we knew it would just be, crazy. Anyway, so I remember that it was the farmer guy. He set it up. He knew a neighbor who had this, so we went out and blew all this dough, had it brought in. Partway through the night, they had to shut down the Ferris wheel because it started to tip, sink in the mud. One side started through the mud, so they better stop that. And then an hour later, the bumper cars came to a halt because too much mud had gotten tracked onto the track, so the bumper cars couldn't move. It was causing too much friction. But my best memory of that event was that I got this video, and I can't remember. I think it was Scott Fraser was playing, or somebody was playing anyway. And I got the video from the stage, and people up there, dancing, partying like crazy, getting mad. And there's this guy right in the front who's like really enthusiastic, and all of a sudden he drops out of frame. And then 5 seconds later, he pops back up into frame, and he's covered head to toe in mud, and he is still going. I had mud on my boots from that party for 5 years. I couldn't get it off my boots. I had some hiking boots that I was wearing that night, and yeah. Anyway, it was and I remember being partway through the night, I was practically in tears, going, "Oh my God, we are so screwed." What are the circus guys going to charge us? Because they didn't get their stuff out of there for almost a month, right? It's like, oh my God. But apparently, it was the nitrous event that people talk about the most. Scott Turner talked about it 10, 15 years later, the mud rave. So there was that, and then Atlantis, I think. It was either, I think the Science Center was the biggie, because it was just it was 6 months of planning and meetings, and I was wearing suits and sitting in boardrooms with people to jump through all the hoops and get it all sorted out. And
were you playing the straight man in these meetings, or were you massaging some of the details?
Well, no, I'm pretty straight. He was like, "We're going to call this." No, I mean, you can't hide it. It's a ring. It's a ring.
Okay. All right.
And it was my idea, because I saw that, and I knew they would do it in some ways, because the way I got the idea was I saw a poster, and it was for a thing called RA, RA, and it was the Sun God, and they did an all-night theatrical presentation at the Science Center with where sunrise, with the Sun God coming up. I thought, well, these guys will stay open all night, and if they'll do it for whack job theater types, why not some innocent ravers? And and so that's when I went and pitched the idea.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And and Burns, I can't remember if Burns had a connection. Burns' connection was Don's connection was got I think got the initial meeting at the CN Tower, but of course by that point we had the Science Center, so it was, and I think that's how we said, hey, listen, we've done this, and he knew someone in marketing, I think, down at the CN Tower, and they were trying to freshen up their image. They still had the cheesy sparkles disco kind of image to what they did, so they were trying to contemporize what they were their image for people.
Wow.
The dancing on the Science Center, I'll tell you though, I mean, just, especially once the cops got involved, when the cops came in, it was about 2 weeks before, they'd gotten wind that we were doing this, and they were, I mean, I get it, safety and all that, but Science Center guys, we had medics already booked. We had, Science Center security is already great. This was a cash cow, and this was sort of, I think, an early inkling of what we would see later on with, all the crackdown and stuff, because, really, I mean, I'm sure people were enjoying enhanced experiences at the Science Center, but there was nothing dangerous, nobody getting really scary, or, you're just not going to do that at the Science Center. And if somebody did get into trouble, there was tons of resources there. Way more dangerous to go to a show, a Chemical Brothers show at the warehouse, than it was to go to, the Atlantis rave at the Science Center. There were dark corners in the warehouse. I mean, I've been to shows there where I was tripping over people that were completely passed out, lying against the things. That's actually what got me to shut it down, was I practically tripped over a kid, and I realized they were practically ODing inside the warehouse during a show. It's like, and if I hadn't walked over top of them, I mean, no one was saying anything. And I thought, this dark corner, my God, we do something anywhere and something were to happen to a kid, it was like, I'm not creating an environment for that. I'm not going to be responsible for that. That is not, I do not want to go down that road. Sorry, we're going to kind of a dark place, but
No, it's interesting.
It was a paradigm shift moment, man, seeing that.
I see a bit of a flip on it. I see the other end. I see that I mean, listen, partying and getting out of control is not exclusive to raving or nightlife or any of this stuff. It's if someone wants to go to that place and get to that level, it's obviously it's a personal choice that they're making. And I'm not quite sure if environments contribute to that. I mean, if somebody is partying and having fun, and then they hear about a place that they can go and do something, whatever that something is, the partying was going to happen regardless, whether it was a barbecue or a dance somewhere or a restaurant, or I don't care what it is. Someone's going to find a reason to go and do something.
For sure, but I think there's also an element of, there is an element of adding or environments can be more or less risky, and the surrounding conditions can contribute, and or if you don't, if you aren't paying an appropriate attention, you're and you miss something, then there's a liability issue that's at play. And so I mentioned this, that I saw happen at the warehouse, and it's happened. God, go to a any rock concert in the 70s, and it was like the stuff that was going on in those was, this is like child's play. But the problem, the other issue here, Jello, was that it was child. This was a really young person, right? So when the rave scene, when we got into it, it was definitely old. It was skewing younger and younger, and by that point, some really nasty substances have starting to make their way into the scene, and there was all of that. It was like, you know what, this is not what we had envisioned. This is not the feeling, the vibe. There was a darkness that was the antithesis to what we had felt and fallen in love with. That was had crept in, and I didn't want to in any way sort of be responsible for anything sort of want to avoid the chance that might happen. And when we're getting, people that age and those kinds of things, it was just like, you know what, that's not where that's not what I don't want to be so stressed over something like that. And there's already stuff I'm sure we're missing. We're flying, we were building the airplane as we flew it, right? When it came to events. I'm sure the first couple of events, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. Both practical and risk. I mean, practical was like hauling speakers up and down stairs ourselves. What
Was
the
that
hell are
water
we
cooler
doing?
conversation for you guys on Sunday evenings or Monday mornings where you were calling each other up and saying to each other, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we just pulled this shit off?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it was post-event. I remember sitting around my table, afterwards, doing all the reckoning and, okay, here's the pile to pay for them. There's the pile to pay for them. And, actually, I literally remember the smell of the money because it was all cash, right? And I remember just, there was so many different bills and things like that. Actually, an interesting story about the CN Tower and a certain bill, if you're interested.
Yeah, of course I'm interested. We're all interested. What is the interesting story about the CN Tower and the bill?
I almost ended up in jail in Cuba because of it. Yeah, we got a couple of jail stories. One
Oh yeah.
really went, but and I kind of pseudo promised I would tell it. That story about the bill was that at the CN Tower, um, some counterfeit money was taken at the door, and when we did the divided things up, cash out. I had a vacation plan. I was going to Cuba for a week with my wife, and there was some American dough, and I said, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. Sure, I'll take the American, and whatever we." And so there was 100. One of the bills was $100 American. So I went down. So we were down at the resort, and the first day, and I was, I think I had maybe $200 for the week, right? It was an all inclusive, and this is great. We're gonna sit, drink, but I won't need any cash. And so I went to the cashier, handed him the stuff. Said I'd like to, exchange this for pesos. And he's looking at it, he's flipping it over, and I'm kind of going, oh, something's getting kind of weird here. And then next thing I know, the door behind him opens up, and a guy walks through with a machine gun and military fatigues, and standing there staring at me, looking very gnarly. And the cashier, takes out a big black marker and writes on the bill, Falso. And I, think, I'm just having visions of, off to a cell with, Juan and Julio for the next week or 6 months or whatever for having tried to pass counterfeit dough. And the bill when he showed it to me, he pulled out a real bill and put it up side by side, and he could tell from my face that I had not a clue. Pasty Scottish Canadian tourist trying to pass fake American dollars, not likely. But yeah, I just my heart sank when I realized that it was fake, and it looked like I was trying to fake. He let me off. He just took the dough, and he just took the bill, and there was no repercussions. But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, Jello, there was like 2-3 minutes there when my insides were just crumbling inside. I was screwed, and my wife wouldn't have known. She was off on the beach somewhere. Anyway,
Did I miss something tonight?
what do you want to hear about the other arrest? That's fun. I promise, Mark, I tell you. So I was doing a night for live to air broadcast for a station out of Niagara Falls, US, called The Planet. Liz Janik from CFNY had set it up. And she had set us up at this really great club in Buffalo called Network. It was owned by one of the big Buffalo Bills DJs. Ton of money spent there. But there'd been a guy in there who had it could handle 2,000, 2,500 people, and he was bringing in like 100, 200 people. And so they brought me in to the night,
It's possible he was just an enthusiast of people having some space to dance.
Well, you'll.
No.
I'm not sure if that was quite the case. So he, I guess, so because I'm Canadian, going to work in the States, can't take a job away from an American. They kept him on at his DJ wage, and he would do lights. But basically, I guess the reason that he had killed the night was he was just playing basically Megamix CDs, one after another, cheesy 80s Megamix CDs. So anyway, we were down there. We were down there for about 6 months, and we built the night up. It was great. They were so nice to us, per diems, meals, hotel, the whole drill, right? Everything was just it was a fabulous gig. Crowd was getting great. Mark Grimace was working with. He was kindly doing promotion because he was living in Niagara Falls at the time, so it was easy for him to get down and do a promo over there. Um, and then one night, the Mark was there because it was a huge DJ booth too, so I couldn't take requests. It was 20 feet away to the sort of back counter where people would go up to make requests. So Mark was making requests. Mark comes over to me at one point. He says, "Iain, these two guys over here want to talk to you." And I say, "Yeah, no problem. Just let me get this mixed." And they're saying, "No, they want to talk to you right now, and they're really insistent. They have badges." So I go over and talk to the guy, throw on another record, whatever, and go over and talk to the guy. We're on air, we're on the radio. Um, and are you, DJ Iain? Yep. Iain McPherson from Toronto. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Great. You have to come with us. Well, you're working here illegally. No, my radio station set this up. The radio station told me they'd taken care of all of the stuff, all the paperwork. And I said that to the guys. He said, "Well, if they had set it up properly, you would have, a such and such card." And I said, "Well, I don't, but I'm sure they took care of it. Sorry, you got to come with us. Complaint's been made." So he was like, "But guys, I'm on air. Get someone else to do it." So I got the lighting guy / DJ, former DJ, come over. And he says, so he gets us out, and my what? The stories. James was with me as well, and Mark. And the thing is, our James and my wife were also with us. They had gone off for dinner, so they were completely out of the club. We had no way of communicating. We didn't have cell phones or stuff, anything. So, and he gets us at the door. He said, "Okay, so I got to put handcuffs on." Handcuffs? He said, "Yeah." He said, "You look like you're not going to be a problem, are you? I'll put them on the front as opposed to the back. We're supposed to put them on the back, but I'll put them on the front." Okay, so I'm all joking around. I'm kind of thinking this has got to be a joke, right? Or something's going on. I'm getting punked or something. They put us in the thing. It turns out they have, and they take us down to the immigration office, and we go in to the immigration office. And on the radio is my show. And they're like, "Oh man, we love your show. Dude, we listen to it every week. We love
Thank you.
what
I'm in
you
the
play,
front
man.
row.
It's just great." Um, but complaint came in. Our boss said we got to act on it and we got to do it. So it's all fun and games until you get the ink on your fingers and they take the prints. And you're going into the U.S. system, and I'm like, "Oh, this is for real." He said, and so they said, "Look, what we can do is you can, contest this now. It means you got to stay in town. You can stay in town till Monday and speak to a judge, or you can come back." And I'm like, "Oh, we're getting the hell out of here." So we drove back. Normally we would stay overnight and drive back the next day. And we got the hell out of Dodge. Every time my car went down, every time Grimace's car went down, because I went down, spoke to an immigration lawyer and did a whole bunch of other stuff, to try and sort the stuff out. Every time I went over, my car got pulled over. Thorough check. Grimace's as well. So they had gone through the parking lot and taken every Canadian license plate number down. And we got checked for 6 months afterwards. I couldn't go over the border without, at least an hour and a half at border crossing.
Wow.
So anyway, fun, end of the story, fun part of the story. We thought we could, maybe what we would do is we would remote in, because Buddy, that DJ, was just terrible. He was going to kill it. So I did the broadcast the next week as if I was in jail. And so we had the sounds of clanking bars and prisoners and, talking in the background. And I sent it out to the 2 security guards. First, and the first song was, of course, The Clash, "I Fought the Law and the Law Won." We broadcast into the club, and I guess it was okay, but it obviously wasn't the same, so it didn't last. It was done, but anyway. But yeah, man, I'll tell you, when you get the ink on your fingers, it's real. It's for real. So
Wow.
yeah, and not my fault. I mean, that was the thing. I was told it was fine. I mean, maybe I was stupid enough. I should have checked, but I trusted these guys. Yeah, shady people in radio, just like there is in the clubs, buddy. Anyway,
Maybe it was just an overlooked detail, or
yeah, it was not an overlooked detail. You're just
trying to
someone
be
in.
chipper.
Yeah, darn decent of you. That's why you have the show, man.
There's always a I think to myself, when we get problems, there's 2 ways to look at them. We can go we can go so I like to go on the side.
I'll give
So
you one more story because I know we're going over
ooh,
time, but I just, for anyone
no,
who stuck around late, hung in here this long, I want to put some meat on the bones,
ooh,
or so to speak. I guess
okay,
this. So this is the wildest thing that ever happened to me in a club. And parents, tell your kids to go somewhere else, because this is this is not particularly family friendly. So at the Lizard Lounge, which was also a great space, second probably to Limelight, Lizard Lounge, great place, great night. It was where we on Sundays, which got the whole Sunday night thing going. But for as a result, we end up doing, our Sundays became sort of the thing to do on a Sunday night for alternative people for a long time. But they did the first fetish nights, and Dave Himes, who was the manager at the time, guy I knew from Nuts and Bolts, had set it up. So we worked with Northbound Leather, and we would do I think it was the first or the third Thursday every month was a fetish night at the Lizard Lounge. And the Lizard literally was an underground club, beautiful, exposed brick, nice sound system and everything, but it was dark. So lots of dark corners, darker than your utility room, for evil deeds. Not to say that evil deeds happen in your thing. Anyway, fetish night was great because you'd have these guys show up. They look like they could be managing your mutual fund portfolio. They would come down with a duffel bag. They'd go into the change room and appear as Madame so and so, and you'd go, okay, I could not tell it was the same dude. They were amazing, but there was all sorts. I mean, it was, if you had a kink, this was the place to go. So it was always, and so the music was nice and raunchy, and it was just a great vibe. Everyone, because they finally got a chance to it was the first time people got a real chance to hang out like this in a club and dance and get steamy and 3/4 naked and all the rest of it. Anyway, so we did the first year anniversary, and we had the cake to celebrate. Well, the cake was a woman named Helga, and Helga was shaved completely. Helga had no hair anywhere, and the cake, she was rolled out on a table, and people were invited to come up and decorate the cake, and they were given whipped cream, chocolate sauce, all kinds of stuff, and decorate, and just covered Helga. Oh, now you're invited to taste the cake, so people are going and eating the stuff. Waiting for you to take a drink. So people are cleaning Helga. So that was freaking hot. But then the best part was Helga came to the DJ booth, sans any clothing, and comes up to me and says, "Oh, you didn't get a piece of cake," and takes her fingers, places them between her legs, and then places them in my mouth. It's the most outrageous thing that has ever happened to me. And I remember going, there's a bit of a texture there.
Oh no,
Dude,
Iain, no,
it was
no,
the
Iain.
most
Oh,
outrageous.
Iain.
I turned to my lighting guy. I said, dude,
Oh,
I need your beer. I need your beer.
Yeah.
So there we go. If
Hey,
Jello, there's a line that you're not supposed to cross. It's about 10 feet back there.
hey, listen.
Anyway,
You
thought I would
know, I
end
we
on
had we had
that note.
Rob DeBoom. He talked about cheesecake. This is a
Oh,
graduated tale of what he shared with us. So,
anyway, there you go, buddy. Sorry, I didn't. Hope I haven't. You can edit that later if you so desire. And apologies.
no, I was just thinking that. I mean, that sounds like it's kind of its own club night right there and then. That's where that's.
I will
Okay,
never forget that experience. That is out of 20 plus years playing. That one is the pinnacle.
it's
Greatness.
certainly a story, and one I'm sure that no matter what, you'll never forget. So this is the point of this, I guess, the episode where I like to get people into what I would call the proverbial hot seat.
All right. Uh oh. Uh oh.
You've got
If
three.
that wasn't hot, I don't know what is, man. I don't know where you're going from here. Fire away.
Ah, cake. You've got three songs.
Oh,
There's songs that you know, you love, you trust.
yes.
There's songs that either have rescued your dance floor in a time of need, or there's songs that have absolutely elevated things to the next level. In either which case, you know these songs so much that they've never left your collection, your box, your USB key, or whatever interface that you've got your music stuffed into. What are these three songs?
The song, the first one is the song that got me into alternative music that introduced me to the Voodoo Club. It was by Pete Shelley. It was called Witness the Change. Um, Busboy at Toby's, where I was working at the time, played it, and it just when we were doing cleanup at the end of the night, played it on the sound system, and I was like, "Dude, what is this?" And it changed my life. I mean, it's like so, and I still love it. It still sounds fresh. Um, I think one of my all-time favorites is probably Atom Bomb by Fluke. I just love Atom Bomb, the Wipeout XL version.
I
Just
love the original, like that. Yes,
um,
Fluke.
yeah, yeah, they were. Hmm,
Fuck yes.
yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, yay! Um, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I really love right now. I'm just loving the Ali and Fila's stuff. Um, guys out of I think they're out of Lebanon or Egypt. To like it's like big room trance stuff. So maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but they have just an a drama and richness and texture. They got a formula, they do the half kick and stuff coming out of the break before the one and stuff like that. That's a little formulaic, but it just. Then they did it was a track I think where to now, and I just my temperature rises still. So I'm going sort of right at the start, kind of in the middle with the electronica, and then sort of what's going on now. I mean, those would be three that I could put them on, and I guaranteed I'm just gonna turn up the volume just a little more, absolutely every time. It's one of those. Okay, don't talk to me now. This is playing.
We use keywords like essential, and maybe the thing that I felt is highlighted not just tonight through our session together, but throughout the show is that there was a sense of adventure that was definitely a big ingredient on going out. The adventure, which was tied into a form of mystery, and that there was a staging to it. The staging that happened from the moment that you were either knew you were going to this to the point of where the trip to the venue, and then once entering the venue, this was something else. Each thing had its own piece, and all of it made sense when it was connected. I'm wondering, with all this that happened, why is that not happening now? why is everything sanitized and this is a digested expectation?
That's I'm not sure if I'm the right guy to be able to answer it. I mean, I
You're
have
you're
thoughts.
you're 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 a guy who was at a start of something that has morphed into something else. And so I'm curious to know what it is that your thoughts about it. I think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. If we were to go ahead and talk about what it is that we were, or what it is that you were doing then, and perhaps what a promoter might be doing now, if we were looking at it very, as a point form on a list, I would want to say that there's a similarity, right? But the execution on how it happens and the overall idea, this is not the same.
I think there's an issue with people being present. On those things that you mentioned, all of those instances, you're incredibly present with the moment. You are there. That's part of the reason why it's exciting, is because of what's happening, because it's you having that unique experience, or that experience that's speaking to you. I never forget that. That there was always a special feeling just as you were walking into that club. That was such a unique, when you got, you'd hear the music and then you'd emerge into the space. My sense is that, and as I see it and I watch all the vids on social, and these people supposedly having this great time, and they all got a freaking phone in their hands, and they're not present. It's a split presence. So they're there and they're sort of, oh yeah, I'm gonna really. Are you there because you're holding your phone? If you're so there, how is this phone part of it? Because as soon as you're going to share it, which is often what's happening, and or you are trying to assimilate whatever information is being displayed on the phone, you're no longer there. You are not at the event. You are at your phone, and or you are broadcasting. So you're not experiencing. You're doing something else, and I think that is a quantum and qualitative shift in how people or unfortunately are not getting the experience that we did back in the day. It's funny, you look at some of the social feeds on people, they're saying who's anyone got pictures, and there's a dearth of pictures of individuals having taken pictures at those events, or if they're obviously they're terrible quality, but very little documenting of the thing was happening. What was happening was people were experiencing, and that is a richness that you cannot have while you have a device there. And so I suspect, again, I don't know. I don't go out to clubs anymore. I don't know. The other thing too, I think is I will say, and I'm a big computer guy. I love computers. I love electronic music, but I do think that there is a real risk with the tool directing the art. It facilitates art, but it controls it too, sometimes implicitly or insidiously. Um, Loops, 4-bar segments, 4, 8, 16-bar segments, those kinds of structures. Well, and the incredible production ability. What about the happy accidents, or the things that happen? Brian, used to talk about, when he was first working with sequencers, that one of his rules was to hit record, to not loop, to not cycle, but to hit record. And when I was producing, I remember one of my probably one of the best pieces I ever did was with the Watchmen, where the bass player was in the live room just fucking around, coming up with something, trying to figure out a way to transition between one song in a set to another. And I just heard him noodling, and I just hit record. There was no cycling, nothing, and we just grabbed some bits of that and created this song that the label just freaked out over. And I still, to my day, is my favorite piece out of that album. So that's where we're using I think the computer kind of pushes us into these packages, and or gives us the time to perfect so much that it can lose some sparkle. And I think a lot of music suffers from that, sterility that the computer has. It's while having given us these incredible tools, has also given us sometimes some invisible, sort of frames out of which it can be difficult to escape. And don't get me wrong, I love electronic music. I told you, Aldi and Fila stuff. I mean, God, that stuff is just gorgeous. So, but a lot of it is, it becomes loops and arrangement. Okay, we're going to drop out the stuff here for 8 bars. Okay, now we're going to put in maybe a little fill or something like that. Becomes, as soon as you get into that kind of formulaic stuff, then you've lost the sparkle. That's what I loved about alternative music. That's what I loved about rave, was that it was new. It was pushing the boundaries. So I got tired of trance because it was all the same kind of stuff for a long time. I think it's gotten interesting again, but there was a period there about 10 years. I was like, yeah, all right. So this Paul Van Dyke sound, now sounds like something I heard 10 years ago. It's great. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm not hearing, an Advance or a Tiesto piece that just, we got to break some barriers, break down some walls, do something, there's got to be that rock and roll revolution kind of thing in the music to make it exciting. And I certainly pop music, there's, with a few exceptions, and you get the singer-songwriters like the Adeles and stuff like that are just like, oh my God, they're gods, but they're not doing Adele kind of broke norms. The Amy Winehouse, she broke a kind of norm, right? That was not a pop star. That kind of stuff wasn't pop star stuff before they came along. Of course, now they're ubiquitous, but they were like, wow, that's a fresh sound. You remember that first Adele album? Like, holy cow, what tonality and range and performance, human richness. Oh my God. And so much of the pop music, and guys are, okay, now we got to do this. Why the fuck do we have to do that? We don't have to do that. But when you get into that mentality, when that thing says, okay, now it's time, okay, now we need the break, why? That's okay. That's expected. Where's
Why
the
is this
art?
formula championed? Is there something to it where we consider terms like earworm? Are humans subject to a certain form of format that we all of a sudden it triggers us, and this is why pop music is pop music?
Well, I mean, there's structures. The blues country. The blues structure. AABA. Of songwriting and the stuff that we as humans. We completely non-structured stuff is challenging and hard as hell to listen to. There's a whole lot of noodly crap out there. Guys who think they're really breaking the boundaries, and there's the trick, right? How do you do something new while still making it something that's palatable, accessible? So pop music has its place, always has and always will, and God, love it. Sometimes, man, I put on, I love listening to great, I'll throw Katy Perry occasionally. Sure, what the hell, right?
For me, it's Ava Max, Kings and Queens. I'm
Uh,
all about it.
and whatever guilty pleasures. What was it? Ace of Base came up in my shuffle the other day. I just told Siri to play music, and Ace of Base, the signs like, this is a crafty, crafty pop tune. Totally structured, and yeah, but
What about Take Me On by Aha?
there you go, right? Yeah, or the in-trance version. There we go. Yeah, but okay, so take me on. That has lots of little creative twists and nuances and layers of things, right? That I mean, now it's ubiquitous, but at that point, I remember when that came out, it's like, okay, wow, what a structure. Dun, 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 dun. What a weird kind of timing structure and stuff. That was really
Do you
unusual.
feel that some of the whimsicality, maybe the the adventurous, happy accidents that could happen with electronic music isn't happening because of the prominent production output that's happening, that people are similarly using DAWs in a fashion. Do you feel that maybe, how about this, is there live electronic music right now that you're listening to that you think is in a place where you're looking towards the future?
I, again, I'll tell you, Jello, I'm not a, I am by no means attuned to what's really going on right now. It's just I
Who
don't
who
have the
is?
time to invest in doing it. I mean, I have so many videos on some of, the cool channels and things like that, that I've saved in my social feeds. I got to go listen to this. And I, hear great stuff. I just finally discovered Empathy Test the other day, a band called Empathy Test. Dude, they're gorgeous. It's awesome. Electronic, but alternative. Her voice is just stunning. The lyrical phrasing. Oh my God. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not, by no means is my ear to the ground in terms of what's happening in pop. I mean, I would conjecture on things, but it would be honestly, man, I am. You want to
I
ask
don't
me
mean to
about
get you
the rave
flustered,
and
Ian.
electronica and new wave? Yeah, I'll speak to that with some feeling of confidence.
Sure.
But what's going on currently, you know, I don't know. I mean, I fell in love with, some of the hip hop that was happening at sort of turn of the century because I thought it was the most interesting stuff. But the stuff I've heard recently is, oh God, it's just, when I hear some of the stuff that's on, that the kids are playing these days, it's like, oh my God, is this could be this being? Maybe it's just that I don't listen to it enough, or maybe I'm just an old fucker. I don't know. I think a little of both.
I think being a DJ is the ability to be in a time machine. We're able to go ahead and go all the way back, or we could go to where we are right now today, or we can take it somewhere a little bit into the future. And it's just it's an awesome superpower that we've all got. It's one that we all share for sure. I really appreciate you being with us tonight, sharing the adventures, um, learning that music is essential for you, and all of it was just fantastic, man. I felt like I learned a ton of shit tonight, especially about Helga and cake.
I see you've taken notes of her name. Oh, okay.
Well,
I
the
will
good
tell.
news is that I'm paying attention.
Helga was well known because Helga used to walk on Queen Street. She was bald. Walk on Queen Street in the middle of the summer with an octopus on her head too. So she was known outside of the fetish night things. Helga, I can wonder whatever happened to Helga. Anyway,
Helga, if you're
Josh,
listening,
it's been a
good
delight.
times.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope people, if they're still listening or if they do listen, I hope they enjoy some of the stories. And it's been an honor. I really, when you asked, I was like, wow, this is really nice. That's so kind of him. So thank
Well,
you.
I mean, look, I asked, and I know that it's one of those things. I mean, we can get revealing, and everyone's got different feelings. Uh, some people are actually just uncomfortable with being on camera. I have people that I'm close with. I'm not going to throw anyone under a bus. So I won't say what it is. I have people that I'm close with that I've asked obviously to do the show. People that I've worked with that have been like, I love you. Can I just give you music, or can I just talk? I don't want to actually talk and be on video and do this at the same time, the simultaneous thing. And some people are just uncomfortable on camera, and I get it. It's we're out there, here we are just interfacing with people.
All in it's there's a technology layer, there's all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I totally respect it when people are have their comfort levels on various things. And
Well, thanks for the kind
all
words,
that.
and I appreciate you. If you check out episodes, and that's cool too, and coming on the show and being a part of it, capturing a piece of the history that a lot of people were a part of, and maybe not aware of what was really happening behind the scenes or how it was. They were part of the adventure, but not exactly certain of how the adventure took place. And this is the greatest opportunity that people are able to get some insight into that.
Hope it
So,
helped.
I, for me, totally.
Cheers, man. So great. Thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it.
Totally awesome sauce. You have been with us here in the utility room, nearly 14 feet deep. Most underground room in house. We have been with DJ Iain, who's been totally awesome sauce for us tonight. Utility room, and we're going to see you next